The baby monitor crackled in the dark, and then I heard my own daughter whisper, "We do it tonight while she's asleep and we make it look like an accident." My fingers went stiff around the little speaker, my heart thumping so hard it felt like it was trying to climb out of my chest, and I could not move, not even to breathe, because the next voice said my name, like it was nothing, like I was just a problem to be removed. I stood there in my nightgown, barefoot on the cold floor, listening to them plan something terrible in my own house, and one thought crashed into my mind, clear as thunder: if they are willing to hurt me, what will they do to my grandson, and will I be too late to stop it? A few weeks earlier, I had been proud of my little home again. My name is Grandma Leela, and I live in a small house with creaky stairs and a porch swing that squeaks when the wind blows. It is not a fancy house, but it is warm, and it holds a lot of memories. I raised my daughter Mariah in that house. I taught her how to tie her shoes on the living room rug, and I measured her height on the kitchen wall with pencil marks. When Mariah grew up, she moved away, got married, and had a little boy named Ben. Ben was 7 years old, with bright eyes and a laugh that could fill the whole room. When I talked to him on the phone, he always asked me the same thing. "Grandma, when can I come over again?" Then one morning Mariah called me, sounding tired and sweet at the same time. "Mom," she said, "we need a fresh start. Things are hard right now. Can Ben and I stay with you for a while?" My heart softened right away. A mother's heart does that. Even when your child is grown, you still remember them as small. I said yes without thinking too much. Mariah and Ben arrived with suitcases, and behind them came Mariah's husband, Carl, carrying boxes like he was doing me a big favor. Carl was polite, but his politeness felt thin, like paper that could tear if you touched it the wrong way. He smiled and said, "Thanks for helping us out, Mrs. Leela, it's just temporary." I nodded and hugged Ben tight. I was happy to have my grandson in my home. I made pancakes for breakfast, cut apples into little moons, and let him sit at my kitchen table drawing superheroes while I hummed. But from the first week, something felt off. Mariah was not acting like the Mariah I knew. She was jumpy. Her eyes kept darting to her phone. When she thought I was not looking, she would step outside to take calls and speak in a low voice. When she came back in, she would smile too quickly, like she was pulling the smile out of a pocket. Carl was worse. He watched my house like he was measuring it. He looked at my cabinets, my hallway closet, the little safe box I kept tucked behind the old photo albums. He did not ask about my garden or my stories or my memories. He asked questions like, "Do you still pay the bills by mail? And do you have cameras outside?" I told myself not to be suspicious. People go through stress. Money troubles can make people act strange. I tried to be patient. Then came the baby monitor. Years ago, when Mariah was a baby, I bought a baby monitor from a yard sale. It was old, but it worked. I kept it in a box in the hall closet because I could not throw it away. I'm the kind of grandma who keeps things that still have a little life in them. When Ben came to stay, Mariah found the box and held up the monitor like it was a prize. "Oh wow," she said, laughing. "This is so old, but it might be perfect. Ben sleepwalks sometimes, remember? This could help us hear him if he gets up." Ben looked embarrassed. "I do not sleepwalk," he said, but his cheeks turned pink. Mariah smiled at him. "Sometimes you do," she said gently, "and it's okay, this helps keep you safe." That sounded reasonable, I agreed. We set the monitor up in Ben's room. The little camera sat on the dresser facing the bed. The speaker stayed on the kitchen counter during the day and on my nightstand at night, just in case. The first night it made soft hissing sounds and then went quiet. I almost forgot about it. Until the night everything changed. It was late, the kind of late when the house feels extra still. The air had that heavy, quiet feeling. I woke up thirsty and sat up slowly. My joints always complained at night. I reached for a glass of water I kept by the bed. Then the baby monitor clicked. At first I thought it was Ben turning over in bed. The monitor often picked up small noises, like blankets or footsteps in the hallway. But then I heard whispering. "Not Ben. Adults." My stomach tightened. I picked up the speaker, keeping it close to my ear. The sound was low but clear enough. I could hear two voices, both trying to be quiet, both standing close to the camera in Ben's room. Mariah's voice came first. "Ben is asleep," she whispered. "He won't wake up." Carl's voice answered, sharp and impatient. "Good, we need to finish this tonight. I'm tired of waiting." I sat very still, my mouth went dry, my mind raced. Why were they in Ben's room whispering after midnight? Then Mariah said something that turned my bones into ice. She leaves her medicine on the counter, Mariah whispered. We switch it. The next morning she takes it, and it will look like she got dizzy and fell. Carl let out a tiny breath, almost like a laugh. Perfect, he whispered. And the papers, we get them signed before anyone knows. We just need her hand to match the signature. My ears rang, my heart pounded. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the monitor. I wanted to stand up, to storm down the hallway, to demand answers, but fear glued me to the bed. Because fear does that, it makes you quiet, and it makes you question yourself. Maybe I misheard, I told myself. Maybe they were talking about something else. Then Mariah said my name. Mom won't suspect anything, she whispered. She trusts me, she always trusts me. Carl's voice went colder. Trust is easy to use. After tonight the house is ours, and no one will believe a confused old woman if she tries to talk. A tear slid down my cheek before I even realized I was crying. They were talking about me. My own daughter, my own child, was in a room down the hall, whispering about hurting me and stealing my home, and making it look like I was the one who caused it. I tried to take a deep breath, but my chest felt tight. The room felt too small. Then the monitor crackled again, and I heard something else, something that made the fear turn into panic. Ben's small voice, sleepy and confused, mumbled, "Mom." There was a pause, like the whole house stopped breathing. And then Carl whispered, "If he wakes up, we handle him too." My blood ran cold. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, finally forcing my body to move, and at the same time, I heard the soft creak of Ben's bedroom door opening on the monitor, like someone was stepping out into the hallway, and I knew that whatever they planned, it was starting right now. I moved fast, but I moved quietly, the way you move when you know one wrong sound could change everything. My feet barely touched the floor as I slipped out of bed, the baby monitor still in my hand, my heart thumping like a drum. The whispers from Ben's room faded for a second, then came back, and I could hear footsteps in the hallway through the tiny speaker. Ben was awake, and they were right there with him. I did not have time to panic, even though panic was trying to swallow me whole. I forced my mind to do one thing at a time. First, keep Ben safe. Second, get help. Third, make sure I had proof, because Carl had already said the scariest part, that no one would believe an old woman. I stepped into my hallway and listened with my own ears, not just the monitor. I could hear a soft shuffle, a child's shuffle like socks on wood. Ben's door creaked again, and then I heard Mariah's low voice, too calm, too controlled. "Ben, honey, go back to bed," she whispered. Ben sounded sleepy but worried. "Why are you in my room?" There was a pause. Then Carl's voice, syrup-sweet in a way that made my skin crawl. "We were checking on you, buddy, go back in." The monitor hissed, and I heard Ben's small breath like he was thinking. Ben was a smart little boy, he noticed things. He might not understand, but he could feel when something was wrong just like I could. I crept to the linen closet and opened it slowly. Inside were folded sheets, towels, and a small flashlight. I grabbed the flashlight and clicked it once, then off, just to make sure it worked. I also grabbed my old phone from the kitchen drawer earlier that day and left it charging because my main phone sometimes died quickly. Now I was grateful I had done that. I tiptoed into the kitchen, keeping low, and the whole time my ears were straining, searching for any change in sound. The kitchen light was off, but moonlight came through the window, painting pale stripes on the counter. I saw my pill organizer sitting right where it always sat. And right beside it, a small bottle that did not belong there. My stomach dropped. They had already brought something into my home. My hands trembled, but I did not touch the bottle. I did not want my fingerprints on anything. I just stared at it, trying to breathe. Then I remembered something my late husband used to say when he worked as a security guard years ago. When you feel fear, don't fight it, use it. Fear keeps you alert, alert keeps you alive. I swallowed hard and picked up my phone. My first thought was to call the police, but I worried about how long it might take for someone to arrive, and I worried about what Carl might do if he heard me talking. So I chose the quickest help that was close. My neighbor. Her name was Mrs. Turner, and she lived 2 houses down. She was the kind of neighbor who noticed everything, the kind who watered her plants at the exact same time every morning, the kind who would not ignore a late-night call. I typed fast, my fingers clumsy with fear. "Help, come now, something wrong, do not knock, go around back." I hit send. Then I did the next thing. I turned on the voice recorder on my phone, and I held it close to the baby monitor speaker. I needed their words saved somewhere other than my memory. Because memories can be doubted. Recordings are harder to deny. The monitor crackled again, and I heard movement. Ben's voice came through, closer now, like he was standing in the hallway. "Grandma," he called softly. My eyes strung. Poor baby. He must have felt scared and confused, and he was looking for me, the one person who always made him feel safe. But Mariah answered first, quick and tight. "Ben, go back to bed, Grandma is sleeping." Ben's voice got smaller, "But I heard you." Carl cut in, "Back to bed." Ben did not answer. There was a sound like a little foot stepping back. My heart ached and anger rose up inside me like fire. How could they speak to him like that? How could Mariah, my Mariah, do this? Then I heard something else that chilled me. A drawer opening. My office drawer. The one where I kept my important papers. I turned toward the hallway, and for a moment I almost marched down there, ready to shout, ready to confront them. But then I remembered Carl's words again. No one will believe a confused old woman. If I ran in yelling, they would say I was imagining things, that I was having a bad dream, that I was confused. And if I scared them, they might act faster. So I forced myself to be smart, not brave in a loud way, but brave in a careful way. I walked to the back door, unlocked it, and opened it a tiny crack so Mrs. Turner could slip in if she came. Then I crouched behind the kitchen counter where I could still see the hallway, but not be easily seen. My knees hurt, but I stayed there. The house was so quiet that every sound felt huge. A soft footstep. A whisper. A creak. Then the monitor picked up Mariah again, and her voice sounded different now, more tense. "Hurry," she whispered, "just get the paper." Carl answered, annoyed. "I'm looking, where does she keep it?" Mariah said, "The folder, the blue folder. It's the one with the house deed and the bank stuff." The blue folder. My stomach twisted because I knew exactly what she meant. That folder was not just papers. It was the story of my whole life. It was everything my husband and I worked for, all the years of saving, all the years of paying, all the years of building something stable. My hands clenched so hard my nails dug into my palms. Then Carl spoke again, and this time his voice was colder, like the mask was slipping. "Once we have the deed and the signature, we're set. We move the money and she can't stop it." Mariah's voice sounded shaky, like she was trying to convince herself. "We have to do it this way. We can't go back. We already owe too much." Owe too much. That phrase hit me like a clue. This was about money, debt, something Mariah and Carl had gotten into, something big enough to make them do something terrible. The monitor hissed, and I heard a faint sound like paper sliding. Carl made a satisfied noise. "Found it." My throat tightened. "Found what?" Then a new sound came, one that made my heart jump. Ben's bedroom door opening again, more loudly this time. Ben's voice was clearer and it trembled. "Mom, I don't feel good, I had a bad dream." Mariah's voice softened for half a second, like the mother part of her tried to break through. "Ben, baby, go back." Carl interrupted, sharper than before. "Not now." Ben started to cry, not loud, but that small hurt cry that kids make when they feel brushed aside. And then I heard a sound that made every muscle in my body go tight. Carl said, low and angry, "If he keeps coming out, we can't finish." Mariah whispered, "Don't, he's just a kid." Carl answered, "Then keep him quiet." My chest felt like it was cracking. I wanted to run and grab Ben and lock us both in my room and never let go. Then, right on time, I heard a faint tap at my back door. "Mrs. Turner." I stood up slowly, my legs stiff, and I opened the door just enough for her to step inside. Her eyes widened when she saw my face. I must have looked like a ghost. "Leela, what on earth?" she started. I pressed a finger to my lips. "Listen," I whispered. I held the baby monitor speaker toward her. Her face changed as she heard Carl's voice. "What is that?" she mouthed, horrified. "Ben's room," I whispered. "They think it's off." Mrs. Turner's hand flew to her mouth. "That's your daughter," she breathed. I nodded, tears burning in my eyes. "They're planning to hurt me and take the house, and now Ben is awake." Mrs. Turner's eyes hardened. "Call the police," she whispered. I nodded and lifted my phone. But before I could press the button, the monitor crackled loudly, and Carl's voice came through, close to the camera like he had stepped right up to it. "Wait," he said, "did you hear that? I think someone is awake and it's not the kid." And then from the hallway, I heard slow footsteps coming toward the kitchen, steady and sure, like someone who already knew exactly where I was hiding. The footsteps got closer, slow and heavy, like they wanted us to know they were coming. Mrs. Turner grabbed my arm, her fingers tight, and her eyes said the same thing my heart was screaming: "Do not let him find you." I held my breath and pulled her behind the kitchen island with me. The baby monitor hissed, and Carl's voice came through again, low and sharp. "I'm telling you, Mariah, someone is up," he whispered. Mariah answered, shaky. "It's probably just the fridge, Carl, you're being paranoid." "No," he said, "I heard movement." Then the hallway floor creaked, and the sound was not coming from the monitor anymore. It was real. It was right in front of us. Mrs. Turner mouthed, "Call now." I nodded and kept my phone low, using the kitchen island as cover. My fingers felt like they belonged to someone else, but I forced them to work. I tapped the emergency number, then held the phone to my ear. A calm voice answered, and I whispered fast, "This is Leela, I need help. There's a man in my house. He's trying to steal documents and I think he plans to hurt me. My grandson is here too, he's 7. Please come now." The dispatcher asked for my address and I gave it, keeping my voice quiet. I did not say everything because I was scared the call would be heard, but I said enough. Then, right as I tried to end the call, the kitchen doorway filled with a shadow. Carl stepped in. He did not turn on the light. He did not need to. The moonlight from the window caught his face, and I saw the tight jaw, the narrowed eyes, and the smile that did not look friendly at all. "Well," he said softly, "there you are." My whole body went stiff. Mrs. Turner stood up beside me like a shield. Carl's eyes flicked to her. "Oh," he said, pretending to be surprised, "neighborly visit at midnight." Mrs. Turner lifted her chin. "What are you doing in Leela's house, Carl?" Carl laughed a little, but it was empty. "We're family," he said. "We're staying here, I can walk around if I want." My mouth was dry, but I forced my voice out. "You were in my office drawer," I said, "and I heard what you said on the baby monitor." For the first time, Carl's face changed just a tiny bit. His eyes sharpened and the friendly mask slipped. "The baby monitor," he repeated. Then his gaze darted to the kitchen counter like he was looking for it. I was still holding it, tucked partly behind my hip. Mariah appeared in the hallway behind him, her hair messy, her face pale. She looked like she wanted to disappear into the wall. "Mom," she whispered, like she was already sorry. Like she was already trying to pull me back with a soft word. I stared at her and my heart cracked in 2 different ways at once. One side hurt because she was my child, the other side burned because she was betraying me. "You plan to switch my medicine," I said, my voice trembling. "You said you would make it look like an accident." Mariah flinched. "It wasn't supposed to be like that," she whispered. Carl snapped, "Stop talking." Mrs. Turner moved closer to me. "The police are coming," she said firmly. Carl's eyes widened, then narrowed again. For 1 second he looked like a man trapped in a corner. Then he smiled. And that smile made my stomach twist, because it looked like he had an answer ready. He stepped back and lifted both hands like he was harmless. "Police, for what?" he asked loud enough that someone outside might hear. "This is ridiculous. Mrs. Leela is confused. She woke up scared and now she's making wild stories." Mrs. Turner frowned. "Confused, she called me for help, Carl." Carl turned to Mariah. "Tell her," he ordered. Mariah's eyes filled with tears. She looked at me, and for a moment she looked like the little girl I once held when she had a fever. Then she looked at Carl, and her shoulders sank. "Mom," she said softly, "you don't understand, we're under a lot of stress." I stared at her, my voice quiet but hard. "Stress does not make you plan to hurt someone." Mariah's face crumpled. She whispered, "We didn't mean to hurt Ben." That sentence hit me like a bell ringing in my head. Ben. Where was Ben? I looked past them toward his room. The hallway was dark, and I could not hear his small footsteps or his voice anymore. My fear doubled. "Where is Ben?" I asked. Mariah's eyes darted. He's in his room." Carl cut in quickly. "He's asleep." But his voice sounded too quick, too practiced. Mrs. Turner must have felt it too, because she leaned forward and said, "Let me see him." Carl's smile vanished. "No," he said. That one word told me everything. Something was wrong. I tightened my grip on the baby monitor and said, "Ben, honey," loud enough for him to hear if he was close. "Grandma's here." No answer. My chest tightened, and I took a step toward the hallway. Carl stepped in front of me, blocking me like a wall. "Don't," he warned quietly. Mrs. Turner's voice rose. "Get out of her way." Carl's eyes flashed. "Back off," he said, and the air in the kitchen felt sharp. Mariah started shaking her head, tears falling now. "Carl, stop, stop," she whispered. "This is going too far." And then something changed. Maybe it was because the police were coming. Maybe it was because she heard her own words out loud, and they sounded evil even to her. Maybe it was because she finally saw what Carl really was. Mariah looked at me and said, "Mom, I didn't want to do it like this." I swallowed hard. "Then tell me the truth," I said. "Right now, all of it." Mariah wiped her face with her sleeve like a child. "We owe money," she said, voice breaking. "A lot of money. Carl borrowed it. He said it was for his business. He said it would help us, that he would pay it back fast." Carl snapped, "Shut up." Mariah kept going like a dam finally cracked open. "It wasn't a business," she said. "He lost it, he kept losing it. And then the people he owed started calling. They said if we don't pay, they will take everything. They said they would come to the house. They know Ben's name, they know where he goes to school." I felt cold all over. So that was the reason. Not love. Not family. Fear and money and bad choices. Mariah sobbed. "Carl said the only way was your house," she whispered to me. "He said if we could get your deed and get you to sign papers, we could use it, and then you wouldn't be here to stop it. He said you were old and nobody would question it." My eyes burned with tears, but my voice stayed steady. "So you planned to hurt me," I said, slow and clear, "because Carl made a mess and you chose to fix it by breaking me." Mariah looked down like she could not face me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Carl's face turned hard like stone. He stepped toward Mariah and hissed, "You just ruined everything." Mrs. Turner backed up, her eyes wide, and whispered to me, "Where are the police?" I could hear it now, faint but real, the distant wail of a siren. Carl heard it too. His head snapped toward the front of the house, and his whole body tensed like an animal ready to run. Then he did something that made my blood freeze again. He turned and shouted down the hallway, "Ben, come here now." A small shape appeared in the dark. Ben stood there, rubbing his eyes, confused, his pajamas wrinkled, his hair sticking up. His cheeks were wet like he had been crying. "Grandma," he said, voice tiny. My heart squeezed so tight it hurt. "Ben, come to me," I said gently. "Come here, baby." Ben took one step toward me. Carl reached him first. He grabbed Ben's wrist, not rough enough to leave a mark, but firm enough to control him. Ben yelped in surprise. "Hey," Ben cried, "that hurts." Mariah gasped, "Carl." Carl's eyes were wild now. "Nobody moves," he said, loud and cold. "Nobody." The siren got louder outside. Carl pulled Ben closer to his side, like Ben was a shield, like Ben was a bargaining chip. And then Carl said the words that made the whole room go silent. "If the police walk in here, I leave with the boy." The siren outside grew louder, and the blue and red lights flashed through the front window like scary lightning. Carl held Ben's wrist tight, and Ben stood stiff, his little chest moving fast like he was trying not to cry again. I could see Ben's eyes looking around the kitchen, searching for me, searching for safety. My heart wanted to run to him and pull him into my arms, but I knew one sudden move could make Carl panic. So I did something hard. I spoke softly, like we were not in danger at all. "Carl," I said, keeping my voice calm, "you don't need to do this. Let Ben go, he's just a child. Carl's eyes darted from the window to the front door and back to me. His breathing was fast. He was not thinking like a normal person anymore. He was thinking like someone trapped. "We're leaving," he said. "We are leaving right now." Mariah stepped forward, hands shaking. Tears were running down her face, but her voice finally had some strength in it. "Carl, stop," she pleaded. "Please just stop, give Ben to my mom." Carl snapped his head at her. "You chose her over me," he hissed. Mariah cried, "No, I chose Ben, I chose Ben." That sentence hit the air like a bell. It was clear it was true, and it made something change inside her. She looked at her son and her face twisted with guilt and fear. I watched my daughter in that moment and understood something painful. Mariah was not evil deep down. She was weak, she was scared, and she had followed the wrong person too far. But now she was finally waking up. Mrs. Turner stood near the kitchen phone with her own phone in her hand, ready to speak, ready to do whatever was needed. Her mouth was tight, her eyes sharp, like she had turned from neighbor to protector. Then came a loud knock at the front door. "Police," a voice called. "Open the door." Carl's grip tightened. Ben made a small sound like a whimper he tried to swallow. I held my hands out, palms forward. "Ben, honey," I said gently, "look at Grandma, keep looking at me." Ben did, and I saw how brave he was trying to be. His lip trembled, but he listened. Carl shouted, "Stay back, you come in, I take the boy." Mariah's whole body shook. "Carl, please," she begged again, softer now, broken. "Please don't do this." The police knocked again, louder. "We can talk," the voice said. "Just open the door, we don't want anyone hurt." Carl laughed, but it was not funny. "Talk," he snapped. "You think talking fixes this?" He looked at me like I was the reason for everything. "You," he said, pointing his chin at me, "you could have just signed the papers. Easy, quick, everyone happy." My voice stayed steady. "Taking my house would not make you happy," I said. "It would only make you hungry for the next thing." Carl's eyes flashed. For a second it looked like he might shout, but then his face changed again, like he remembered time was running out. He pulled Ben a step toward the back door. Mrs. Turner shifted to block the back door with her body. Carl glared at her. "Move." Mrs. Turner lifted her chin. "Not with that child." Carl's voice went low. "Lady, you don't understand what I'm dealing with." Mrs. Turner answered, "And you don't understand what I'm willing to do to protect this family." It was not a threat with fists or weapons. It was a firm truth. She would not step aside. Carl's eyes slid to me again, then to Mariah, then to the kitchen counter. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The strange bottle was still there, beside my pill organizer. Carl noticed me noticing it, his mouth twisted. "You were going to use that," I said softly. "You were going to make me fall." Mariah covered her mouth with her hand, like she could not bear to hear it again. Carl's face hardened, but he did not deny it. "I did what I had to do," he said. And I realized something else. He did not even feel sorry. He only felt angry that it was not working. The police knocked again. "Open the door now," the voice called firmer. "We know there is a child inside." Carl's head snapped up. He stared at the front door like he was counting his seconds. Then he changed his plan. He leaned down toward Ben's ear and whispered something. Ben's eyes widened. He shook his head quickly, scared. "No," Ben whispered. Carl's grip tightened again. "Do it," he hissed, "or you know what happens." Mariah gasped. "Carl, don't talk to him like that." I stepped forward one small step, slow and careful. "Carl," I said, "whatever you told him, stop, talk to me, I'm the adult." Carl's eyes flicked to mine, and he smiled again, that cold smile. "You want to trade?" he asked softly. "Fine, you come with me and I leave the kid." My skin went cold. He was trying to use me. He was trying to pull me out where he could control me. Mrs. Turner whispered, "No, Leela, don't." Mariah cried, "Mom, do." But Ben looked at me and his eyes begged me, and my heart felt like it would break in half. I whispered, "It's okay, Ben, Grandma's here." Then before anyone could stop me, I said, "Carl, let Ben go and I'll talk to you." Mrs. Turner grabbed my sleeve. "Leela." I squeezed her hand once, a quick squeeze that said, "Trust me." I turned to Mariah and spoke clearly, slow enough that fear would not swallow my words. Mariah, listen to me. You are Ben's mother. This is your moment. You can fix this. Mariah sobbed and nodded, like she was drowning and I had tossed her a rope. I looked back at Carl. Let Ben go, I said again, and we talk. Carl's eyes narrowed. He liked the idea. He liked feeling like he was winning. He loosened his grip on Ben, just a little. And in that tiny opening I saw my chance. I spoke to Ben in the calmest voice I could, like it was a normal bedtime reminder. Ben, I said, remember the game we play, the one called Freeze and Run? Ben blinked through tears. He nodded very small. When Grandma says run to the porch, what do you do? I asked. Ben swallowed. I run, he whispered. I kept my eyes on Carl, not on Ben, because I didn't want Carl to catch on. Good, I said. And remember, you don't look back. You run to the porch light and you yell your loudest yell. Ben nodded again. Carl shifted, suspicious. What are you doing? He demanded. I smiled gently like an innocent grandma. I'm calming him down, I said. Carl snorted. Fine, hurry up. The police shouted again at the front door. Open now. Carl's face twisted with stress. He pulled Ben closer again, and I feared my chance was gone. But then something happened that none of us expected. A loud crash came from the living room. It sounded like the front door had been forced open. Carl's head snapped toward the sound, and in that split second his grip on Ben loosened. I shouted, not loud but sharp and clear, "Run to the porch, Ben." Ben moved like lightning. He yanked his arm free and sprinted down the hallway, his small feet pounding, his pajamas flapping, his fear turning into speed. Mariah screamed, "Ben!" Carl roared, "No!" Carl lunged after him, knocking a chair sideways. It scraped the floor and toppled with a loud bang. Mrs. Turner rushed toward me, grabbing my arm to pull me back, but I pushed forward, trying to block Carl's path. Carl shoved past, fast and desperate. I heard Ben's voice from the front of the house, loud and terrified. "Help, help, Grandma." Then, just as I thought the police would reach him, I heard a different sound. A car door slam. An engine starting. And Carl's voice shouting from outside, "Get in, Ben, now." My heart stopped, because I realized Carl had gotten to the driveway first, and Ben's yelling suddenly cut off, like someone had grabbed him, and I could not see what was happening past the front window, only the flashing police lights and the shadowy shapes moving fast, and I did not know in that terrible moment if my grandson was still safe. For 1 second, everything in me went numb, like my heart forgot how to beat. Then I heard Ben's voice again, not far, not gone, just outside, loud and shaky. "I'm here, I'm here." That sound snapped me back to life. I ran to the front window, my hands pressed to the glass. The flashing police lights painted the yard in bright colors. I saw 2 officers moving fast, and I saw Carl near his car, pulling at the door like he was trying to get it open and leave right away. But he was not smooth anymore. He was messy, panicked, and trapped. Ben was not in the car. Ben was behind a police officer, crouched low near the porch steps, exactly where I had told him to run. One officer had his arm out in front of Ben like a safety wall, keeping Carl back. Mrs. Turner rushed to the front door with me, and Mariah stumbled behind us, crying so hard she could barely stand. "Open the door," an officer called, and Mrs. Turner did. The cold night air rushed in, and the sound of everything rushed in too, shouting, footsteps, radios, and Ben's frightened breathing. One officer stepped inside quickly and said, "Ma'am, stay back, we have the child." I grabbed the doorframe to steady myself. My legs felt weak like jelly. Outside, Carl raised his hands and tried to talk fast, the way some people do when they think words can erase what they did. "This is a misunderstanding," he shouted. "I'm his father." Another officer stood firm and said, "Sir, step away from the vehicle. Now." Carl's eyes bounced around like he was looking for a hole to escape through. He took 1 step back, then another, then he stopped when he saw there was nowhere to go. And then, just like that, the police moved in and put handcuffs on him. No drama, no big fight, just a quick, serious action, because the officers were trained for moments like this. Carl's shoulders slumped when the cuffs clicked. He still tried to talk. She's confused, he said, pointing toward the house. She's old, she heard something and got scared. But this time it did not work. Because we had proof. Mrs. Turner held up her phone. We recorded the baby monitor, she said, loud enough for the officers to hear. The officer nodded once, focused and calm. Good, he said, we'll take that. I stepped onto the porch, and when Ben saw me, his face crumpled like paper. Grandma, he cried. I opened my arms and he ran to me. He crashed into my legs and hugged me so tight I could feel his small heart pounding. I was scared, he whispered into my nightgown. I know, I whispered back, stroking his hair. You were so brave, you did exactly what we practiced, you saved yourself. Ben sniffled. I ran to the porch light. And you yelled, I said. That's why they found you so fast. Behind me, Mariah made a sound like her whole body was breaking. She dropped onto the porch step and covered her face. I didn't want this, she sobbed. I didn't want this. I looked at her, and I felt so many things at once that it almost made me dizzy. I felt hurt. I felt anger. I felt sadness. And under all of it I still felt love, the kind of love that does not vanish, even when your child makes a terrible choice. But love does not mean pretending everything is fine. Love also means telling the truth. An officer came to speak with me, while another stayed outside with Carl. Ma'am, the officer said gently, can you tell me what happened tonight? So I did. I told him about the baby monitor and the whispers, and the plan to switch my medicine and the papers and the threats. I told him how I called Mrs. Turner. I told him how we recorded what they said. Mrs. Turner handed over her phone and my phone, and the officer listened to a small part of the recording. His face tightened, and he nodded again. This is serious, he said. We're going to take it from here. Mariah lifted her head, her eyes swollen. Am I going to jail? She asked in a tiny voice. The officer looked at her carefully. That depends on the investigation, he said. But you need to understand something. Planning to harm someone and planning to steal property are crimes, even if you were scared, even if someone pressured you. Mariah started sobbing again. He made me, she whispered. He made me feel like I had no choice. I stepped closer, still holding Ben. Mariah, I said softly, Carl did not put those words in your mouth. You said them, you were my baby once, you knew right from wrong, you still do. But Mariah flinched like my words were a slap, but she nodded. I know, she whispered. I hate myself, I was scared. Carl owes money to people who kept calling, they threatened him, they threatened us. He said they would take Ben. He said we would lose everything. He said you had a house and you wouldn't even need it much longer. I closed my eyes for a moment because that last part hurt the most. Not the money, not the house, the way she talked about my life like it was already almost over. When I opened my eyes, I spoke slowly, making sure Ben could understand too. Being scared does not make it okay to hurt someone, I said. Fear is not an excuse to do evil. Mariah wiped her face. I understand, she said. I do, I was wrong. The police took Carl away that night. They also took the strange bottle from my counter as evidence. They told me not to touch anything else until an investigator came in the morning. Before they left, one officer knelt to Ben's level and said, You did a good job yelling for help. That was smart. Ben nodded, still clinging to me. Grandma told me, he said. The officer smiled. Grandmas know a lot, he said. After the police cars drove off, the house felt too quiet again. But it was a different kind of quiet. It was the quiet after a storm when you are still shaking but you are alive. Mrs. Turner stayed until dawn. She made tea, even though none of us really drank it. She sat close to me like a guard. Ben fell asleep on the couch with a blanket tucked under his chin. Every now and then, he would make a small sigh, like his body was finally letting go of the fear. Mariah sat at my kitchen table, staring at her hands. When the sun began to rise, she finally spoke. Mom, she said, voice hoarse, I will do whatever you want, I'll leave, I'll get help, I'll tell the police everything, I'll stop covering for Carl, I'll stop lying. I looked at her for a long time. I want 2 things, I said. She nodded quickly. Anything. First, I said, you will tell the truth fully, no hiding, no protecting Carl, no pretending you were only a victim, you were also part of it. Mariah nodded, tears slipping again. Yes, she whispered. Second, I said, Ben stays safe. That means you get help, real help, and you prove you can be trusted again. Trust is not a word. Trust is what you do every day. Mariah nodded again. I will, she said, I promise. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The police investigated. They confirmed Carl had been trying to push Mariah into signing papers and taking loans under her name. They found messages and calls from people who were pressuring him for money. The police also found the fake documents Carl had prepared, trying to move my home into his control. Because we had the recording, and because Mrs. Turner supported my story, Carl could not twist the truth anymore. Mariah gave a full statement. She admitted her part. She faced consequences, including strict legal rules and supervision, and she began counseling because she needed to understand why she let fear and pressure turn her into someone she did not recognize. And Ben stayed with me for a while. He went back to school with a new routine. We made the house feel safe again. We added simple new rules, doors locked at night, phones charged, neighbors we can call, and we practiced what to do in an emergency, not to live in fear but to be ready. One evening, Ben sat beside me on the porch swing and said, "Grandma, are you mad at Mom forever?" I looked at his small face and answered honestly in words he could hold. "I'm hurt," I said, "and I'm disappointed, but I still love her and I want her to become better. Love doesn't mean we ignore wrong. Love means we tell the truth and we protect what matters." Ben leaned his head against my arm. "You protected me," he said. "Yes," I whispered, "always." That is the lesson I learned too, and I want anyone listening to remember it. When something feels wrong, we must listen to that feeling. We must not stay quiet just because the truth is painful. Silence can be dangerous, especially when someone is counting on you to stay silent. That night, a small old baby monitor reminded me that the truth has a way of finding a voice. And because I listened, because I acted, and because I asked for help, my grandson was safe, my home was protected, and the lies did not win.